Our next speaker is joining us remotely from far northwestern Iowa, right? And this is Roseanne Plant. She is a rare combination of talents because not only is she a native plant enthusiast, she's also a lawyer, and she is a beauty pageant winner, the reigning, let's see, Miss Agriculture America Elite of 2023 and 2024. So a wonderful range of talents, and she has worked a lot with the Wild Ones organization, and has, I believe, a founder of the Wild Lawyers, who are helping deal with such topics as weed ordinances and how to work with them. And Roseanne, I just wanted to double check and make sure that the audio sounds good, so please feel free to cut in.
Okay, well, it sounds great. How do I hear to you?
You sound fantastic. I think it sounds great in the room. And then did we decide, am I going to share your slides or are you going to share them yourself?
Well, I want to concentrate on what you asked me to do, and my slides are just not quite that presentation. So I was just going to speak, I guess, off the cuff, and if you'd like to share the materials later, you're welcome to do that. But I don't want it to distract from the specific topic you've asked me to speak about today.
Okay, then that's awesome. And I will step aside and let you take over. Thank you very much.
Well, welcome and happy spring. I've decided I don't want to wait for the last 10 days here. I think it's going to be spring, and it's a wonderful sunny day here. I'm coming from you from Northwest Iowa, and it's a great opportunity, the Zoom technology, because it is quite a drive over. As your hostess did say, my name is Roseanne Plant. I'm an attorney. I've been a lawyer for just under 30 years, and I'm mostly a trial lawyer and do family law. But in my other capacity, because we aren't just what we do for a living, I am a gardener, and have been since I was a small child. And I'm a Iowa Master Gardener since 2004, and I'm also an Iowa Certified Conservationist. So I love to be outside. I have an acreage here, and as you might have heard, I do. They call it a pageant, but it's really a community service event. And so I am just about ready to be done being Mrs. Agriculture America, but I really use that as a platform. My husband and we have a nonprofit where we grow food here on our acreage, and we encourage other people as well to grow food. If it's a pot on the deck or a half an acre like we have, and donate that to food kitchens and soup pantries to help feed the hungry. And as you may know, we have more and more hungry people in the United States every day. So I'll continue to do that. That's my life passion. But I am so blessed to be able to work the Wild Lawyer, and I'd love to take credit for establishing it, but I didn't. The Wild Lawyers are part of the Wild Ones. You may know about the Wild Ones Native Plant Organization. There's hundreds of chapters across the United States. I belong to the one here in the Lost Hills, and I was just one of the first Wild Lawyers. And what the Wild Lawyers do, just in case you don't know, is we work extensively with the Wild Ones National Organization, but we also help individual chapters. And if you go to the Wild Ones National website, you'll see a tab that says Wild Lawyers. And if you click on it, you'll see a lot of resources available to you and your communities. You don't have to be a member of the Wild Ones to see those resources, though we sure would love to have you join Wild Ones National Organization in a chapter nearby you. But what we have done is we've stepped in and tried to fill gaps where there is a legal issue when it comes to native plants. And believe it or not, there's more legal issues than you might imagine. And what should say my specialty is native plant ordinances. And you might say, how do you get that as a specialty? Well, I spent 8 years as a city attorney for the city of Sioux City. And I used to be the big bad weed police lady. I was the lawyer that would be asked to go out and look at a property and assess if we needed to write a citation. And I didn't really like that part of my job. And I would always, sometimes to the chagrin of the city council, I would try to work with those homeowners because most people had a good intention. Most people wanted the wild plants, and they just maybe didn't understand how to make them more presentable to meet the requirements of those ordinances. And so now in my other life as a private practitioner and a volunteer lawyer, I can now be on the other side and I can help you defend if the weed police come knocking on your door. But in the new era here, last year and the year before was all about defense. I'm now here to speak to you today, and I'm encouraging everybody I speak to be on offense. And I know what you all know if you're a spokesperson or somebody who follows sports, I should say, what that means. And so today I have two goals. We don't have a lot of time together. If you want to know more information, you can Google my name and wild police or wild lawyers. And I have two lengthy seminars, about an hour with questions and answers at the end on YouTube. And if you want to know more, you can go out there. But today I've been asked to speak about two things. And so they are, I want to speak about as community activists seeking to make local ordinances more open, what can I do to help you encourage other people to have ordinances that encourage native plants? How can we get this out there and also make native plants less criminal? I feel like a lot of these plants are criminalized and people don't want them, and we live in this very cookie cutter society where all anybody wants is what the HOA says. So I want to address that today, and then I want to tell you what the Wild Lawyers resources are, and then answer any questions that you have. So how, as an advocate, can you seek to make these local ordinances more open to native plantings? And so here's what I would say is, if possible, look into this before you have a problem. And what do I mean by that? Well, we always get a call. I always get calls from native plant enthusiasts and people from the Wild Ones members that say, I have this native planting and now the city is coming after me. Right now in Iowa, I have a client that I have taken on pro bono, means I'm not charging him. And he is in your area. He has a native garden, which he's actually developing so that it can be part of his business. He's going to be selling native plants. And the local municipality, and especially two neighbors in particular, that he has an idea who they are, they don't like the way his yard looks because it doesn't look like every other cookie cutter yard. And so he went through about 6 months of what he characterized as harassment. And then they said, we're going to fine you and we're going to, and here's the scary part for him. We're going to walk in and we're just going to mow your garden down. And there's a lot of legal problems with somebody walking onto your property, just taking a huge commercial mower and mowing everything down. So I worked with this person, okay, this individual. And the first thing we did was we reached out to the people that run the town council. And we found out, surprise, surprise, there is no ordinance. Okay. And specifically about his issue, and the ordinance they have is so old that it's actually addressing the little area between the sidewalk and the street. Some people call it a carriage walk. Some people call it the parking. You might have known what the area is. So they have an ordinance, but it doesn't even apply to what his issue is. His flowers are up in his yard. And so we have been working with that town council to educate them. I have offered my native plant master ordinance. I've written a native plant ordinance where it's a starting point where different towns say, well, I don't know how to do this. I can tell you, you'll get further with town councils if you give them something to start with. You simply call your local mayor and say, hey, can you write a native plant ordinance? Most places will not. They don't have people on staff who write ordinances, let alone a specialty ordinance like this. And so if you want a place to start, I've gone ahead and done that. I've looked at native plant ordinances from around the United States. I've selected the best parts of them. They were reviewed by the board of wild lawyers that we have. We tweaked them, we've massaged them, and we've produced what we like to call our native plant sample ordinance. And if you're looking for a place to start, that's an excellent place to start. And it's a sample ordinance, so that means you don't have to do everything, but you can pick out parts that will help in your community. So as usual, want to be there before there's a problem, but many of these things are what I call situational based. You're not going to hear about this until somebody calls and says, oh, hey, I'm going to be written up, or they're threatening to come in and mow my plants down. So at this point, what we also did is we're educating. And if you are in that position, or you know somebody in that position that they want to mow everything down, the worst thing we can do is overreact. I know we're very passionate as native plant enthusiasts, and I would be remiss to say, unfortunately, in the current political climate that we're all dealing with, that we need to stay calm. And anything can become a political issue. And so I'm encouraging everybody, if you receive one of these tickets, do not become overly defensive. Instead, use it as a tool to educate. And what does that mean? Do not immediately see the city council as the enemy, or the councilman or the alderman, or whatever they call it in your community. Okay. Use it as a time to reach out, and instead of forming a wall, form a bridge. Reach out and say, and I always tell people, what ordinance did I break? Okay. And number two, can you show me how the ordinance was violated? Oftentimes you have one person, the complainer in the neighborhood, and to quiet that complainer, they write a ticket. And the folks out there are not native plant experts. They don't know a coneflower from a missile, okay? They don't know. So they just find something that works, put it on a ticket, and give it to the person, the native plant grower. And that's the concern, okay? So you want to bring people in and give them an opportunity to really understand, is this a native plant and what good does it do? Okay. And that's where you can start educating your towns and your communities. And how do you educate somebody? Well, you can provide them with a list of native plants in the area. Okay. That would be right up your alley. As seed producers and as people in this network, you better than anybody can use your knowledge to say, this is a native plant and this is why it's a good thing. We are all looking, when we're trying to prove our case, for what is in it for everybody. This is good because, as we know, native plants, they encourage pollination, they save water, they stop down on erosion, all of these things. And if you can stress that and the importance of them in the ecosystem, you're going to get farther with your town council. And you may fight that ticket off, or you may be able to do something so that they drop the ticket. All right. But then I tell people, don't stop there. Don't stop there. Educate your people. So how can you do that? Well, I've had a very successful run in this area of the state, inviting leaders, elected officials, to a formal garden walk. So what does that mean? Have people in your area, some of them might be yourself, invite them over to your yard. Tell them about your native plants. Perhaps show them how they look in different forms, okay, different throughout the year. As we know, when you have native plants, the first couple of years are a little rough, right? Okay, they don't look as pretty as they do in later years. So you might want to show them that and educate them. Native plants don't look as pretty in the spring as they do in the summer, late summer, early fall. So what looks like a weed this month will be a beautiful flower next month. And take the opportunity to show people that. If it's early in the season, maybe you have pictures from last year and you can demonstrate that. When we educate people, it's incredibly powerful. And that is one resource that I think is really necessary, is to educate folks. Ideally, you want to reach out before there's a problem. If there's a problem, this is what you can do. So what do you do if things don't go well? What can you do if they say, well, we're still taking you to court? Okay, well, then you can look for the resources. So what are some resources? You can look for an attorney in your area. A lot of them don't have native plant experience. Okay. As far as I know, I might be the only wild lawyer or native plant person really in this side of the state. I know we have a state representative who's passionate about wild plants. and native plants, and he's actually introduced some legislation in the Iowa House this year. I don't know where it is or if it made the funnel last week. But his name is Sean, and he's very involved in native plants. But where else can you seek to have some assistance? And you're absolutely welcome, like I said, to contact the wild lawyers and the wild ones. And so, what kind of things do the wild lawyers do? Well, first of all, we're a resource. There's several of us. You can just send an email to our national office through our website, and they will send one of the attorneys a note and say, can you talk to this person? I get calls from all over the United States, literally from one coast to the other, asking me exactly these kind of questions. Now, the thing about being a wild lawyer is several of us only have licenses in certain states. So we can't represent you. We can't take on a case unless we feel comfortable with it. The gentleman I'm helping in Iowa, obviously he's in Iowa, so I have an Iowa license and I can help him a little bit more than usual. But we are a resource to bounce things off of. We are a resource to look at if you're writing one of these native plant ordinances, or if you just need a little bit of help, just dissecting some personalities that you might be dealing with there in your town council. So we are resources, but we can't represent you. And the wild lawyers also are available in capacities that you might have a question about. We have a garden walk coming up. What do you think about insurance? So we're a resource in that regard, but we can't actually represent you in court or a court proceeding. So I hope that makes sense. It's a little difficult, and I'm of course willing to take questions about that, but we're a starting off place. Well, so if you need more in-depth legal direction, sometimes what the wild lawyers do is like a doctor. I'm sorry, Laura.
Oh, yeah, I just was getting set up to handle questions in a minute or two, so just ignore the person behind the curtain here.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I'm just kind of wrapping up here, but the wild lawyers are kind of like a general practitioner doctor. You can come to us, we can listen to your needs, and then what we can do is go ahead and diagnose perhaps what would be best for you, and then find a lawyer, hopefully in your area. We are actively trying to put together a mailing list of legal professionals throughout the United States. So if you call me from Indiana or Ohio, hopefully I can find a licensed professional in that area to do further possible. But we really are a place that we can come and direct you, diagnose you to what we think you could do for the benefit of the situation and get you on the right path. And so we do all of those things as wild attorneys. And we are so proud of the work we do. And I absolutely love being able to combine my personal passion with my professional work to serve folks like you. And that's really, I wanted to drill down on those two goals that was asked to. Obviously, my information will be available, and anybody can reach out to me if they have an in-depth question. I see that we have a couple people from the National Wild Lawyers, or not National Wild Ones office online, and so I'm thrilled that they were able to join, including our national leader. So at this time, I'm going to wrap it up and take questions. Laura.
That's wonderful. Can you hear me with this microphone?
Is working?
Is it working? Okay, all right. Because I'll be passing this around if there are people who have questions, but I just want to say thank you. It's just kind of it's such a unique skill set that you have, and exploring these ideas about municipalities as and people who live there as a potential market for native plants and seeds, I think is kind of an important direction, especially considering uncertainties in some of the other markets. So really appreciate your help and answer your questions. So any questions in the audience right now?
Do you have questions about putting fire on the landscape with native plants?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, do you have questions ever that arise about putting fire on the landscape with native plants, especially in housing developments?
I do. And of course, we all know the importance of a burn at points. And what you have to do, unfortunately, is you do have to be very aware of whatever ordinances there are in the municipality, in the city limits regarding open burning. And once you look at those ordinances, if there are any, I encourage people that if you want to do what is called a control burn in those situations, that you work with the municipality. I was involved in one of those a few years ago where they used it as a part of a training with the fire department in the area. And it was extremely beneficial to everybody. Not only was the burn accomplished, but the fire department was able to get some valuable training, and they saw it as a positive for all. One thing I just want to reiterate is that so many people see municipalities and town councils and city councils as the enemy. And I want you to flip that in your head and think of them as an advocate and as a partner. Because these municipalities, as some of you may know, have large open like green spaces that are just prime time areas to get native plants in there. And so rather than planting your tired old petunias that you get at your big box store, I have encouraged so many municipalities to invest in native plants because they are sustainable, they're showy, and they tell a story. I call it the 3 S's, okay? And as we all know, they're very sustainable and you can show a cost savings. Remember, you always want to work with municipalities to show how they could do their jobs better and more efficient. And money is always important when you're talking about a government entity.
Thank you very much, Roseanne. We really appreciate your time today and preparing for this and for joining us today. And we'll just give you a round of applause.